under the leadership of Tom Teslick, had set forth. And then finally, the Utilities Commission then put out an RFP. Actually, they asked the Board of Selectmen to put out an RFP for a consultant advisor. And I think we got 6 responses, and Homeland Towers was selected from that RFP. This is what I would call the plan, consistent with what the Utilities Commission was talking about. And this pretty much lays out the plan that I've been following, because I agreed 100% with the strategy. I agreed with the selection of Homeland Towers. And so I've been pursuing what was recommended back then. Homeland Towers has a relationship with us. Originally, we were going to have a master lease for all town property, and then it was decided by the Board of Selectmen they'd rather do it property by property. So they've been working for us in the summer in 2017 when Aquarian wanted to take the antennas off the Waveney water tank. They spent time designing a cell tower for Waveney Park next to the water tank that would have been 150 feet tall. That'd be taller than 130 foot. And when I took office, Aquarian came in and said, "We heard you. We will keep the antennas on the water tank." There's an array of water tank of antennas surrounding. They're masked, so you don't know they're there. But so they've been doing a lot of work for us, sort of on the come, because they get paid only if they build a tower and get carriers to come on. And but they do what the carriers want. They don't select locations. They talk to the carriers. AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile now as the 4 primary carriers. And they, under the rules that were established, the Utilities Commission recommended to Planning and Zoning that they update their rules, which hadn't been updated to conform to the 1996 Telecommunication Act, the federal. And so Tom Teslick's philosophy was, we're going to lay out what we'd like to see, and we'd like the carriers to work with us. Don't come in and surprise us. So last April, when Verizon came and said, we'd like to do it, when Homeland Towers said Verizon would like to do a tower on the west side of town, that was surprising because I had never heard the words funded tower before. That means they actually have the money. Normally they come and say, we want to put a tower here. Sometime in the next few years, we hope to have the money in our budgets. They have incredible demand all around the country to improve their service. And so again, Homeland Towers is working with the carriers to do what they feel they need to improve their service. So those are the 3 documents I encourage you especially to read. There's a lot of other stuff if you have bedtime reading.
There's a lot of
you need. There's a lot there.
There's a lot of stuff.
And that's all I'll say for tonight. I think I'll be happy to answer questions, or as we go along, I'll be here. So
Okay. Thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate it.
okay.
So I guess this is our meeting now.
Well, got one more piece just to, as part of the organizational portion of the meeting. First of all, you should ask for a vote to accept. We do need to set your meeting schedule. So you all were sent a draft.
Got it. I've got it.
proposed-
I've got it. I got copies. We'll pass it on.
Okay, that's something that you should do tonight as well, so that the meetings then don't become special meetings, right? They become regular meetings, which gives you a lot more flexibility when it comes to your agenda and changing, adding and things like that to your agenda. Mimi Pitt, who works with us up here, and Tucker Murphy, I'm the administrative officer, and you're the special project coordinator. Special project coordinator title. Mimi deals with everything all FOIA related. If anybody has a FOIA request ever, it all goes through Mimi. We work together on making sure that all everything's obviously posted properly and that kind of thing. So you received some information when you were sworn in from the town clerk regarding the Freedom of Information Act. And I also sent you a video recording of something that we did with our attorneys a year ago when we had new town council members that I think will be helpful for you. Remembering that the goal of FOIA is just to make sure that the government is open and transparent and that kind of thing. But we thought that it might be helpful, just being that some of you are new to the process, that we would just take 5 to 10 minutes, go over some of the highlights. Don't want you to fall into any of the pitfalls. It's really a very the intention of the law is the right one, but you can easily fall into some of these traps. It so innocently happens. But Mimi's prepared a little bit of an outline, and we could just go over that quickly. And obviously, we're here to answer any questions if you should need them.
Terrific.
So Connecticut has had a Freedom of Information Act since 1975. Governor Grasso brought it in pretty much in response to Watergate. And as Tucker mentioned, it's really to promote open and transparent government. And it basically governs two things, meetings and records. Okay, so this is a meeting. You were all, we sent out a notice about the meeting. It's a public meeting. It's actually being recorded. There will be minutes filed. That's a meeting. There are some things that might seem like a meeting, but aren't really a meeting. For instance, if you, the Utilities Commission, decided to attend a Board of Finance meeting, that would not be a Utilities Commission meeting because you're not really there to act on any matter. You're probably just there to listen or to give some input. So that's not a meeting. Chance or social meetings, really not a meeting, but you ought to be a little bit careful about that. The people up in Hartford have warned that, you know, meeting together and having a cup of coffee and talking about everything that the Utilities Commission is considering could be considered a meeting. It hasn't been yet, but just a cautionary note there. Also caucus, obviously single party meeting together. That's not a meeting. Sometimes email communications can be considered a meeting, and this is one thing we'd like to especially warn you about. Somebody sends out an email to the entire Utilities Commission, and people start responding and opining and so forth. That can be considered a meeting. So generally, if Rich sends out something to the whole committee, probably safest to put, please do not respond up in the captions so that you don't start getting that cross conversation going.
So
I
is
think-
it, why it's not good to?
That would constitute a meeting and the public didn't have the opportunity to be at that part of the
Oh,
meeting.
I
and
got it.
you're-
Okay.
You're doing it privately so that the public can't hear it.
We think of it as you can make statements, but you can't participate in a discussion online.
Got it.
Give
Okay.
you opinions.
Right,
Just to put a fine point on that. So Rich sends out a communication to everybody. Can they respond just to me?
just to you.
Yes, just.
So,
to
okay,
Yes.
so is the warning on the bottom, please don't respond, or please,
not reply all.
or
Please do
please
not
don't
reply all.
respond? Yeah, reply to all. Okay.
Right,
But you
But
could
I-
individually reply one,
individually,
you know, as long as it's a one-on-one.
right.
The only
Um,
time there's an exception to that, if Rich sends something out saying, there's a snowstorm coming tomorrow, we're not having our meeting, are you guys available on Thursday? Yeah, I mean, again, you wouldn't reply all necessarily to junk up everybody's inbox, but that's obviously nothing really of substance to do with the,
And what about the medium of communication? We should not text, right?
no,
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 so
personal
texting,
emails.
email, personal email. You're each, I'm gonna get to records emails, but yeah, you should not. We are right now in a hybrid meeting, are we?
Mhm.
Yes, so that's started to come about during COVID, and that's going to stay in place. So if, for instance, you can't attend in person, there will be a Zoom link for you to attend these meetings, and that's still, you're still participating in the meeting. You're still considered part of the quorum, or, you know, you can still vote. All of those rights that you would have sitting here, you would have in that hybrid setting. Okay, now I think we'll move on to records. So you are each going to be given a town email address. I think for some of you who have had them before, we might even just need to reactivate them. And we would encourage you to use your town email address when conducting town business. Because if you use your personal email address while you're conducting town business, that too would be subject to FOIA, and you would have to search your personal email for any responsive records to whatever the request is. And let me just tell you that that's really a pain, and it's very difficult to do with your personal email. So when I'm searching your town email, I can put 5 or 6 or 7 search words in at a time. I can put a time frame in. But when you're doing it yourself on your Gmail, I think you're doing it one word at a time. and it's very cumbersome. So we really would recommend that you use your town email. That the town retains all of its records in accordance with the state. So we know what we have. If you get a FOIA request, I would ask that you send it to me because I actually do track them, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge that request in 4 days. And then I'll work with you and we'll figure out what we need to do to respond to that request promptly. And promptly has a lot of interpretation. Yes, sir.
So just to be clear, I have a personal Gmail address, I have a business email
Right.
address, and I'll have this town email. address.
Correct.
That is public knowledge. You can
It is.
search it. The other two,
Completely separate.
Completely
unless
off the
you-
table.
Unless you make the mistake of
as
conducting.
long as you stay on the town's Gmail
Correct.
And he
email
brings
address.
up a FOIA request. So a FOIA request would become from the public, somebody from the public who is looking for some particular information. And they may send something to me saying, you know, at the Utilities Commission meeting, there was mentioned an email that was received from somebody else, and I'd like to see that email, and then she will search it. So as you're writing emails and corresponding, remember that anybody can read that at any given time. So I would just say to comport yourself in a way that you would want others to view you in terms of how you're writing, because they are open to the press, the public at all times.
My personal emails are sacrosanct.
Safe, as
No
long
way
as you don't-
anybody can come.
As
up with-
long as you're not using it for town business.
Correct.
Right.
Even if you're using it on your own personal computer, but you have 3 different ones, they can't come after your personal computer.
We talked about that today with IT. So your town email, your device at home or whatever device you're using is only giving you access. It's just like if you went to the library and logged on their computer. It's not on your device. I mean, don't download anything onto your own device, but you're just achieving access through to get the emails. You'll load the emails so you'll get access to them on your home computer, but you won't be putting any documents or anything like that.
But if I open an email that has an attachment, Doesn't that
You're
get
not
on the-
downloading it. You'll just be opening it and reading it through the town email system.
And
Yes, so you can easily, I think you get instructions how to,
Add to
take
your
your town email address and put it on your phone.
Yeah.
So you don't
Yeah.
have to.
And our IT department is very willing to help anytime.
What if we were to print and all that? So
Sorry?
I said, what if we were to like print and at home or any of those documents, it's
fine.
still fine as long as they're not actually saved on our drives.
I would especially encourage you not to use any kind of business email address. We have had that in the past. That's been
Sure.
a huge problem.
Yeah.
So avoid using your, M&T bank account, email address if you work for M&T.
And if
They're
someone,
not gonna
That's
like
why
that.
I asked. the
They're not gonna like
question.
that.
if you have a friend that emails you because they know you and they send it to your personal, just reply and copy say, please, correspond with me about Utilities Commission
Right.
on my
Get
my
it
town
back
email
under the
address.
fairground.
Just, yeah.
Exactly.
There are certain exemptions to FOIA. One is anything that would be considered attorney-client privileged. We also have an exception for drafts, but there's sort of a balancing test there. Does the public interest outweigh the interest in disclosing it? Also, there are certain other ones, trade secrets. I don't know, this group might have some interesting
Yeah.
interesting ones. We might have to really look a little bit more into some of the exemptions. Also be aware that texts can also be FOIA'd. And they're very difficult to track down. So I, again, would encourage you not to get into that situation.
And even if you've sent a text and even though you've deleted it on your phone,
Yeah.
whoever got it might not have. So it's still there.
And just also maybe beware of social media. I mean, I think it would be fine for somebody to say, we have a utilities commission meeting tonight, but I don't think you could say, we have a utilities commission meeting tonight. Come on out and rally against XYZ. All that stuff is out there forever. So I would encourage avoiding that. Can you think of
Might be
anything
making it
else?
sound a little more complicated than it is, and there are definitely some complications when it comes to it. But again, if you just stick with your own email, don't have any sidebar conversations or anything like that, just, to conduct the business as you do in a group at the meeting. You're gonna be perfectly fine, but we're here to help you along the way. And we just, again, thought it would be smart to give you some of the highlights ahead of time so that you were aware and look at some of the material that we also are considering having a little onboarding session, which we do from time to time throughout the year with new commissioners or committee members or town public that are helping to in town hall. So we'll let you know if we do that. And again, it could be by Zoom, or our legal counsel takes you through some of the little more details about FOIA. So
But what's going to happen is we walk away and we immediately think, geez, I didn't ask that. And that's really one of the things. Who can we call?
ask about FOIA?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Me,
Mimi?
myself.
So we just call Mimi and say, hey, what about this?
Or me. I'm an expert. I'm an expert in FOIA.
Yes, he is.
I'll call Mimi.
Yes.
But a quick question. Let's say I want to share some like technical result that I've seen. Should I bring it here and
Sent it to the chair, I think.
send to the chair? But that's not going to be
No, you're allowed to communicate with the chair.
only to the chair. That's safest way to. Okay.
Also, you have microphones in front of you, right? So generally, this meeting will always be recorded on Zoom, and then will be on a YouTube video on the town website. But you probably ordinarily will never be broadcast unless you decide to hold a public hearing and invite the public. So we might have occasion to broadcast live. But speak close to your microphones, because the people who are going to watch the video would like to hear you. So when you sit back, and some, unfortunately, boards and commissions, they sit back like that and they forget that they're being recorded, and it's very helpful to make sure your voice is being picked up.
I'm working on it.
How many FOIA requests are you working on? How many did you do last year? Can you just give us an idea how pervasive
I
this
think
is?
on average, we get 75 to 100 requests a year. Some of them are maybe just one-off things, a document. Some of them ask for, 5 years of emails on a certain subject.
Yeah, and
It varies.
I've been on a few of these, and I can tell you, it feels just like discovery in a court case.
It is, yeah.
Right? That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's no fun when you go to Hartford and you're talking to the judge or whatever they
Yeah.
call him up there.
Yeah.
This way
Commissioners.
you'll know what to avoid and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been to Hartford a few times,
Right.
but we've been pretty lucky with that too. So we're hoping.
But the underlying principle here is we're not supposed to have people make decisions in dark rooms with nobody watching.
That's right.
Right. So if you feel like you're making a decision in a dark room, you ought to ask yourself, am I going at risk with FOIA on this?
Right.
Yeah, and I always tell people, before you send that email out, think about how it's going to look on the front page of the paper.
Thanks for keeping us on the straight and narrow, Mimi.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay.
You're up.
You-
You want to pass out the meeting?
My turn. Yeah, why don't we
You're
talk, we do need to look at the schedule. We've been going back and forth, and all we've been doing is looking at what dates are available, where we can actually get this room and what are reasonable. And the typical way that a commission would look at this is you try and be consistent month to month so everybody can kind of plan their schedule. When we looked at it, it appeared that the best place to be would be the third Tuesday of a month. And the reason for that is that's the day before most town council meetings. And it is the week after the Board of Finance meeting, and Kevin can get us whenever he wants. So that doesn't really make any difference. And so that just seemed reasonable. The other thing we talked about is we were thinking of when we did this is, do we want it to be a day meeting or a night meeting? And we can decide that here as to whether it's a day or night or whether it's mixed. But the point is, and it all comes back to FOIA, everything that we're doing tonight comes back to FOIA. We have to put a meeting schedule in for the year because it's required that we put a meeting schedule in. And so citizens know when they can come watch. And that's the whole point. And so you can't move a meeting. You can cancel it. If you cancel it, you can't put it back on. There's 3 types of meetings. There's regular meetings, which these are, and we'll talk about the schedule for 7 of them here. If we need a meeting, we can call a special meeting. It has to be called within 24 hours. So you can call a meeting for a day from now. It has to have an agenda. The difference is in a special meeting, you cannot change the agenda. A regular meeting, you can change the agenda during the meeting, takes 2/3 vote of the commissioners to do that, but you can add something or you can subtract something. And then there's an emergency meeting and that's just an emergency. I don't know what the rules are for that. But let me pass this out. What came up when Pam searched what was available on the third Tuesday.
Pam is Pam Flynn.
Yeah,
Okay, if you're looking to call her here at the town hall.
yeah, she answers the phone. She answers Kevin's phone. So that's there are 2 dates on this that don't follow that pattern of the third Tuesday. And the first one is July 20th. And the reason it doesn't follow the third Tuesday is we couldn't get this room. It was already taken by somebody that could block us out. And then the other one is December 11th. The third Tuesday was already taken. And so Pam took a look back for us and said, when are the logical ones? She gave me 3 dates. And so I picked the one that looked like it would be the most congenial. December, I think the December date was December 20th. So we could have the 21st to 22nd, right? So it just got closer and closer to Christmas. So it didn't seem like a good idea. December 11th is probably on a Hanukkah day. But
It's
not
the 5th night of Hanukkah.
but not the first and not the last. So it does have that issue with it. I don't think there's any issues around July 20th. That's a Thursday, I think. And so what we need to do is we need to agree whether this is okay or not. And vote on it. And then Pam will file it for us. So we're filed up through the end of the year. And then we come back again in January. We got to do another one for the year and get filed up through the end. So I don't know whether you're ready to talk about this right now.
Keeping in mind that we can do these via Zoom
Mhm.
if we happen to be away or whatnot, which we do all the time in business, so it shouldn't be an issue, at least I'm thinking. Unless you're out of the country and you can't.
Is that a motion?
How
I'm
many
not-
people does it take to make a quorum? Because if you can be here, you can be on Zoom, but you might just not be able to do it. 5?
5 with 9, it takes 5.
So I think the only question I would have is whether we're talking day or night, or if that's a separate subject, because the
Let's do the
dates.
days first and then we can talk day or night, or does it matter to you?
It,
7 PM, you don't have to do 7 PM.
Right.
no, yeah, I'm, it does matter. No, day, night is really just during the workday that I would have concerns about, particularly about being secretary, if it's going to be during the day.
Okay.
And that's much harder.
Mhm.
Then I would also have to look harder at the days. If it's in the evening, you know what I mean? I'm okay. And that's easier for me to put flexibility, but with,
Well, why don't we do it this way?
Days.
Why don't we decide the dates? Okay, and then let's come back and talk the times. Okay, so would somebody make a motion?
That's fine. I'll make a motion to propose these dates listed for the rest of 2023.
I'll second that.
Good.
All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Great. Yeah, so we just wanted to bounce off the idea of would there be the ability to have a mixture of some day meetings and night, or if days are off the table, or
so
we'll just stick with nights.
particularly for me, for being days I work and I cannot. I can do my best to make meetings, but it's much more difficult and much more, I have too many in the
It's
work
the
that I
same
do, too
here,
many
like-
emergencies and too many where I'll be at the last minute. And I cannot commit to, it's certainly being, I wouldn't want to take the responsibility and obligation of secretary if we're going to have day meetings. It's just, I'm just too.
Gentlemen?
Gentlemen, any other thoughts?
Agree with you. Same thing on the day meetings are very, very difficult.
Okay.
Could be done if necessary, but
so
we
we'll do
prefer
that.
evening.
All right, so we'll do nice. Are we comfortable with 7 o'clock, or do we want to make it earlier, or is
Earlier or later? It could be
6 o'clock
7:30, it could be
okay, or
6,
no? It
could be-
still needs to be 7?
I'd prefer it not later.
Oh, definitely not later.
7 more.
7 work. I think 7 works. I can actually.
Mhm. 7's a pretty good balance from my standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Okay. Do we have to vote on that or not? I don't think we
No,
have to
you're
vote on that because we only have to vote on the dates. The other thing is, do we want to make every meeting a hybrid meeting? I think it's a good idea. We don't have to. We don't have to make it hybrid meeting at all.
We encourage you to make it hybrid.
I know, but we don't have to.
But actually, I think if a member asks that it be a hybrid meeting, you have to do it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
I'm gonna need flexibility sometimes
think
with
that's
my
gonna be-
travel.
I think that's gonna be helpful because we just don't know day-to-day basis. But still willing to participate.
Then I'll make the motion that we allow electronic participation at all regular meetings.
And special.
And special? Yeah, and special. Emergency, that's crazy. We've never done one, have we? Oh, okay.
I'll bet you do.
We're not at your pay grade. Okay. I'll make the
second
motion.
that motion to, you made the motion, right?
Yeah.
I'll second the motion to have all of our meetings, both regular and special, be hybrid.
And emergency too. Is that why exclude
And
that?
emergency,
fine.
fine. Yes, all
fine.
meetings, all meetings.
Okay, I can't think of anything else to talk about the schedule.
Hmm.
Okay, it would be good if everybody can make as many in-person meetings as they can. I think it's just a good thing. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, we can talk about any other stuff that you guys want to talk about. We're gonna have our next meeting on July 20th. By July 20th, I would like to see whether we can kind of put an inventory together of what we all want to do, what areas you're comfortable and want to deal in and work in for the commission. I think the skills at this table are incredible and the experience is incredible. And it does tend to be in sectors, right? And though we are clearly focused on cell service to begin with, our mandate is across all the utilities. So it is across, Eversource and water and, internet, et cetera. And if you read the ordinance, what it says is we're to try and make the utilities that our citizens use to be the best, most productive utilities we can. And I think that's an easy thing to measure. And I think we ought to continue to go back to the citizens and ask them what they want. We know what people in government want right now, and we know what citizens don't like. That the people in government want to do. We don't necessarily know what they like or don't like about the different utilities. In my mind. Well, I don't think anybody knows what I like or don't like about it anyways. That's it. So it's kind of a personal thing. But what I'd like to do is I'll send out a one-way letter to everybody that says, please put together what you want to do. And the way I see this, typically in a commission like this, we'd have subcommittees or something. You'd be working on power, you'd be working on cell service, et cetera. I think it might be very useful instead of having committees if we had somebody that took a lead as opposed to have a committee and then looked at the commissioners as a resource to help them. People they might like to work with or people that might have a specific skill for this project. And so think of it more on a project basis as opposed to what we used to do in town council, which is I had finance. I was always looking at finance because that's much more of a rolling process as opposed to projects, I think. So that's my thought. It's certainly up for debate for everybody here on how to deal with it. But that's a thought. And so I would be interested, and as I said, I'll send you an email, interested in what you want to do, how you would, if you think that's a decent way to organize, what participation you'd like to take in that.
Could in that email you include sort of the list of things that you think are on the menu, as it were?
Sure. And I'm going to ask you to do the same to me. If I've excluded
Yeah.
something, make sure and put it on.
Sure, I think that's why you circulated. Oh, you forgot this one sort of thing.
Mhm. And then we'll try, so in the July meeting, we for sure ought to have come to some agreement on where people will focus. And in the simultaneous, we ought to be looking at a lot of the stuff that we've got to review between now and then. That's everything I can think of. Is there anything people would like, other things for organization you'd like to bring up?
I think the only thing I would add to that, and it's maybe just part of the inventory, but certainly in the last week, I've started to read everything I can get my hands on, both within the city and the subject areas, and it's just started. But I think in the next meeting, I mean, maybe this is just for me, because I'm also new to the town, so some of the issues and areas are still new to me. But I'm, hopefully we're going to bring whatever background I have to that,
Yeah.
but an understanding of like what's out there, what we know or what we don't know. Like there are certain services that I, just because of where I live or whatever, and because I haven't been in the city very much, that I may not be as familiar with, but want to be. And I'm sure I'll be able to find a lot of it in the available resources that are out there,
Okay.
but I may not be able to.
Mhm.
And so I expect to come this next meeting saying, I read, I looked, I studied, I thought, and I can't, there's no public information about this or that. And maybe it's all there, but maybe not. And I would like to be able to have that form of saying, this area that's of reasonable importance, maybe we need to make sure that we're all on the same page on some base level of information of, utility service A, utility service B. I mean, just in terms of more, that's something I'm interested to make sure that we're all thinking about it and coming from a kind of a base level of information.
Because that's an interesting angle. Everybody's going to do the research. If somebody comes across something really interesting and, authoritative on the topic,
You bet.
share it somehow or the other.
Hey,
Yeah,
would
but
it be
we
helpful, you
can
think,
only
to
share
open a
it.
data room?
Well, if we give it to Rich, he can send it out to us, right?
But could you open a data room? You know what I mean? So we could
Yeah,
all
that's
ask.
I think more efficient.
I know what a data room is, but not exactly.
No, so-
There's nothing wrong with sharing information, just don't get conversational about it. So, since everything is stored in your town email address, there's really no need to create a data room. Everything is there. And if you want to send something to everybody, actually, what you need to do is create a UC distribution so that it goes to everybody. We'll set up another email address, UC distribution.
It's a good idea.
So you don't have to type everybody's name.
But I'm just thinking of storage and over the course of time and if we're coming in that if we had some kind of a data room. And it's not even that it's got to be anything about what we're discussing. It's just resources that we've reviewed that's on cell towers, a folder on
Yep.
so that you can post to the data room and then it's just stuff to read, really.
Can that be done digitally though?
Yeah, it's a digital data room. So then you would have a link to the data room. You can,
It's like a hard disk. that is shared.
it's just on, it's just a drive. It's easy. I can,
It's like Dropbox.
Google Drive.
yeah, it's like a Dropbox.
It's Dropbox,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
For data and articles and things, like you send something, did you know that the water mains are 120 years old and
Yeah.
X number of
Oh, yeah,
streets in
they-
town?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I missed emails or, I don't have to keep track and I didn't keep you sent one thing and then was one over, but I didn't see that article. If I just want to look at stuff on, the water, I can click and everybody's posted whatever they've got up in the one spot.
But somebody finds it, circulates it, and then it goes in the data room.
Yeah.
Yeah. that
Yeah.
way
And
that-
I mean, as secretary, I could keep the data, you know what I mean? So if
Yeah,
I get
that
copied,
would
I
be-
can just
that would
load
be-
everything up.
Yeah.
Let me talk to my IT guys or somebody and see
Yeah. that
how
would be
what the
great.
easiest way to.
And you can talk to the town's IT guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's too. Never get those IT guys.
Yeah.
All I know is it's not me.
If you watch the FOIA video, the hour and 11-minute video, there was one thing mentioned that I thought was very interesting to think about, and I don't know whether it's helpful or harmful, and it's social media. Because I don't know how many of you folks have Facebook pages where you're getting stuff dumped on. I've got one. I'd never look at it, but I've got one, and that's a place where I think we can there's an opportunity, I think, to elicit a lot of information from the citizens if we did it properly.
Mm.
But it's an area where I think we could get in dramatic trouble as well.
Yeah, professionally, I cannot use Facebook, so
Can you use any?
no.
No? Okay.
But it wouldn't be personal anyway. We'd have
Yeah.
you're talking about having like a utilities commission
Right.
page.
Something.
But who's? gonna
Sure, yeah.
monitor?
Yeah.
Well, those are all the problems, I mean, and I'm sure the problems outlist the benefits, but
I thought I would make a couple more comments if I could. So we have a relationship with Holman Towers. I think it would be a good idea if you invited them to come and talk to you. And also to bootstrap or get up to speed on some of your knowledge. We have a pending request from Holman Towers and Verizon and AT&T to do a tower on the west side of town. I think they'd like to hear back from the town
how long have we had it?
about since last April. But in October, the Planning and Zoning Commission, under what is called an 824 review, anything being done on town property has to go to planning and zoning. So you could look at that meeting and see what was already discussed in planning and zoning action on that. So there's some ways you could
You sent
get
us
up,
the link to that, right?
get up to speed. I could send you a link to that it's on it's on the town website. But it'd be easier if I just sent you. So if you want to, in your leisure, kind of get up to speed on some of the things that have been discussed, but that is a pending request. And I think it's important that you hear from Holman Towers and also Verizon for that matter, because Verizon did appear not only to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but also to the town council.
Mhm.
And that's all in the can. You can go back and watch that. It's all on the town website.
Okay, thank you. Do many towns have utility commission? I was amazed to hear that we didn't have one for years and years and years. and then it was for
I
5
don't-
years and then down again.
Quite honestly, I think it was first formed in the 1980s. And the mission originally was more to be an advocate for our residents. All of our utilities now are monopolies virtually. In fact, I happened to attend a monthly meeting today with Westcog. Westcog is the regional council of governors, so that all the first selectmen and mayors of the 17 towns in Westcog meet monthly. And today they had the head of Eversource Electric. We have different presentations, and they brought their team of communicators, because one of our big issues with Eversource Electric is what happens in emergencies. How well do they perform? And that's always a subject of discussion. And also they mentioned today the rates, obviously last winter was a shock with the price of gas going through the moon. And so they addressed rates. Eversource is a distribution company. They're not allowed to manufacture electricity. So what happened last winter was really a problem with those who manufacture electricity. And there's a consortium or one organization that supplies New England manufactured electricity to Eversource as a distribution company. So, but basically the most important issue is how they perform. And both in terms of service, I mean, when you call them, do they show up? Do they do what's necessary? And in emergencies. Same thing applies to cable companies. Same thing applies to the telecoms. And Aquarian Water. Most everybody in town is on Aquarian Water. There's a small group of people that are on the Norwalk Water Company on Long Valley Road. But so again, dealing with utilities in our experience is frustrating because they serve, like Eversource serves virtually more than half of Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. So they have a big territory. They got a lot of people calling on them, and they tend not to favor one town over another. So.
Okay, well, anything else we had to chat about before we close this up?
Initial reading, but we can do that.
We'll do that at a future meeting.
Yeah, do you look at, I'm totally novel, I don't know anything. Do you have a sort of a cost analysis on per acres on the city? So meaning here in downtown, we are spending so much money on water, electricity, and things like that.
Not sure I understand the question. Cost in terms of
I mean, if you look
Construction
at the map of New Canaan, right? There is a service that we are paying, for instance, to bring the water all the way to certain address, and electricity, the same thing, right? Have you ever done this type of analysis, which means like per square of acres, what is the cost? Because what happened is that when you're in the center of the city, it's more profitable than when you're far away from the city.
Well, Aquarian has a rather large footprint in Connecticut. And they're monopoly here. There's no competing other than this little sliver of Norwalk Water Company down Valley Road. Because
No, so what I'm
Yeah.
getting at is that in order, you suggest a list
Mhm.
of topic. So there's a ton of list of topic. And I'm my background in financial engineering, it tells me like we should look at what is the most pressing in return on investment. So basically,
Prioritize.
to prioritize. If you look at all the costs for the city in terms of water, in terms of internet or every other issue, you can basically make a map, a heat map of how it's critical or not, and rank them.
well, I guess I would say, the state regulates all these utilities, and that's what the state would probably do, not a local municipality, because we don't have the resources but there's a lot of state data and in
State
term-
data, that would be enough.
For
Because like,
example,
for
Aquarian-
instance, if we say electricity is something which is costing a fortune to the city, for instance,
Right.
We could say, hey, why don't we install some solar panel where we bypass the distribution and we bypass the cost? and demonstrating that, hey, and by having a few solar panel on some of the property of the city, we would cut down tremendously the cost. That's what I'm trying to
Sure.
say.
To that, just
Yeah.
to that point, I think that that regulated cost information is out there.
Yeah.
For the water, for electrical,
yeah.
that information is
So
gathered.
I'll give you an example. Everybody has the right to buy electricity from someone other than Eversource. And you can go with Constellation. There's various vendors. The town goes with Constellation, but through a broker process to find the best bid. At the Mayfair, I happened to have lunch with a fellow who said, I'd like to come and talk to you. He's in the business of doing what's being done in other states, where a municipality can say, we want all of our residents to be with Constellation. And you will be unless you opt out. Because most people don't take the initiative to go and say, I want to go with someone other than Eversource. Obviously, anybody else than Eversource is less costly than Eversource because they find ways of acquiring electricity
Mhm.
apart from Eversource's ways. So that was very interesting. The only trouble is it hasn't been authorized yet by the Connecticut legislature, and he's working on getting it authorized. But I thought that was a very interesting development that I had never thought about. The whole town automatically will go on a competitor of Eversource to buy electricity.
What did-
And we
What
get-
did he have to say as to the savings versus just you as an individual going to Constellation? When you group the whole town, you're saying.
Well,
you
that's
ought
what
to
that's
get-
what he's saying. And literally, you sent a letter out to everybody saying you're going to begin to have this competitor of Eversource unless you opt out.
A version of that was done has been done in California.
Yeah, California.
For
Yeah.
renewables and stuff. So, I mean, these
Exactly.
are, I have a fairly good understanding of this area.
Yeah.
And also various levels of aggregation of communities, and it can get into like areas that I'm not sure that's the scope of the conversation, but your point about the costs and priorities and what we can change or what impact the town can be, that also has to play into that.
I'll give
Because
you another
as a
example.
regulated- as a regulated-
Last year Aquarian asked for a rate increase and they hadn't asked for a rate increase for several years. They had been acquired by Eversource, maybe going back 4 years from Macquarie, who owned them for about 10 years as a private equity investment. I don't think Macquarie invested in them, but Eversource bought them and started investing in the network. The 100-year-old pipes that are in our streets have to be replaced. They have a 36-inch pipe they're bringing from Wilton to move water over to Stamford and Greenwich. That is, we see the investment, and a lot of towns said they wanted to oppose the rate increase. Well, if you want a quality water company, they have to be able to make the investment and get the return on what they're investing. So that's the kind of thing that you have to, if they're not currently working in your town to replace your 100-year-old pipes or installing a 36-inch water main, you don't see the investment and why they're asking for a rate increase.
And the other thing that we do we pay for hydrants on a per hydrant basis. And we've been pushing, to expand the hydrant system where it makes sense. Obviously, once the houses get far enough apart, it doesn't make a lot more sense. And there's other ways of supplying water in a fire situation. The other thing we pay for is street lights. Okay. Other than that, we're a consumer.
Well, on the other hand, Eversource is the largest taxpayer in town.
Yeah.
We tax all their electric wires, all their equipment,
All the pipe.
all their pipe. So it's kind of a symbiote. Then they charge us.
Yep.
So as a
The
town,
markup.
they provide the fire hydrants. We have to pay them for that. So same thing with, they own the lights in town. Some towns, own their own street lights. Eversource owns the lights and charges. So,
And sewers on the special taxing district.
well, sewer is actually done by the town. In New Canaan, we have our own sewer plant. Other towns may outsource that, sell their sewer plant to a private company or to a water company all around America. The water companies are buying up sewer plants because if dirty water goes in, it comes out clean and it's part of the water system. So,
That's been talked about here in the past,
yes,
right?
yes.
So to that point in this discussion, I would say that certainly having the conversation of each utility service and what is the regime here, because it varies state by state, region by region, to make sure, like, okay, for cable, it's this, for electric, it's this, for water, it's like in this town. This is the structure that we have here. And then from there, you can develop then sort of the issues that are of interest or of topic or that are of particular cost or where there's options. I mean, I think that's kind of where the conversation can go,
Mhm.
to the point of like a list of things,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
certainly goes almost by utility service by utility
Yeah,
service.
Sure does.
Yeah, in that regard, I believe the ordinance that was adopted by the town council excluded our sewer from being
It
subject
did
to your,
not include it.
to your jurisdiction, so. We only have one and it's operated by the town.
Yeah, that's
So-
right. And what percentage of the town is actually on it? Not a lot.
Probably
right?
one third of the land mass, because 2/3 are on wall and septic, but the concentration downtown, probably 2/3 of the residents
Probably
are
2/3 of the.
use,
residents.
use the sewer system. And everybody uses it because when Palladino or anybody comes and takes your pumps
Yeah,
your,
sure.
it goes into our sewer system. And so everybody effectively uses it one way or another.
Do you have a feel for the capacity usage of it? I mean, is it being taxed? The volume going through our one facility?
What do you mean by taxed?
Overused, underused? How's
Well,
it?
that happens to be the big subject of debate right now because with these affordable housing proposals, the 100-year storm last year, which remember it was in August. We've been seeing some storms that we haven't seen in years. And when we're licensed to operate the sewer plant, we're not allowed to let it overflow and pollute downstream. But that 100-year storm really scared us in terms of whether or not capacity is adequate, because you have to test it at the extremes. And quite honestly, that's a subject where we've authorized a study of the sewer system, which we haven't done in years, to see do we have to make further investment in it? It's 20 years since we renovated the entire plant. And especially if we're going to add more density of housing in town, what's really necessary. So.
Well, I'm not sure I'm pushing the question, but I mean, it must be rated to do a certain volume per day.
Oh, yeah.
100
Well,
years
currently,
old.
as long as in dry weather, it functions perfectly well. But the concern is
But it
storm.
could do
storm.
20% more volume, or do you have a feel for that? On normal.
I really
days?
wouldn't want to address that because it's out of my scope of what I pay attention to. I mean, I hear things, but I really,
Okay.
10 inches of rain will
Oh, I understand
have
the
that
100
situation
year.
very quickly.
That's.
and ironically,
Question,
the coastal towns like Stanford and Norwalk are allowed to dump it into the sound, whereas we're not allowed to let it go downstream. So.
In the summer, we are pretty much all the flow of the 5 Mile River.
Of clean water.
Yes.
Anybody else want to bring anything up? I think we're ready to recess.
Question.
I can't, no, we can't do that.
Can't do public.
Well,
Okay,
actually, for that, that's a fair point. Every board and commission is supposed to give an opportunity for public comment. So if there's someone.
I thought we were able to decide that.
You,
And I
well,
think- I thought we
actually,
had to say that in the agenda and we didn't.
I don't, actually, the bias of FOIA is to give the public the right to comment, and some restrict it somewhat. The Board of Finance is the only body that I don't know how they get away with it, doesn't take public comment except at a public hearing.
I'm glad to do that, but our agenda doesn't say that. It says
Well-
roll call and organizational meeting. But I'm glad to have Betty talk, but
Yeah.
2 minutes. We're gonna limit
Yeah.
all public comment to 2 minutes on this.
Yeah,
commission,
that's 2 or 3
so
minutes is
we'll set
normally
the
the
timer.
norm.
But
Yeah.
it's not on the agenda, but we will permit it.
Hi, Betty.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. I want to first thank each and every one of
Can
you.
you say
for
who you are,
serving.
your name and where you're from?
Absolutely. Betty Lavostic, Old Norwalk Road in New Canaan. I want to thank each and every one of you for stepping up and serving our town in this capacity. And I just had 2 comments to make. The first one is to add public comment as an item in your future agendas, to keep that there for us. And the second thing is, those of you who know me know that I attend many meetings every year. And the suggestion I have, in addition to your individual government email addresses, could it be possible for your commission to add a distribution email address where the public, if we are writing letters and we don't want to write to one commissioner, we have it on town council, as many of you know, also on Park and Rec and on Board of Selectmen, that there is a general email
Yeah.
distribution for the public. So could that be added to your commission?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, it's already been, we already mentioned it once tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
I think so too.
so thank you so much and good luck.
Thanks, Betty.
Thank you, Benny. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Terrific. Second?
Second.
Perfect. We're adjourned.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye.
For the help.
Thank you, Kevin.
So you
Thanks,
said-
boss.
It on.
Are you done?
It on.
No problem.